So by a show of hands, who is or would consider themselves a full-time real estate investor? Awesome. Okay, so you guys are going to get a lot of value from this. So, actually, I should let you guys introduce yourselves first. You want to go right?
Hello. Hi. My name is Victoria Funner. I am a realtor. I just switched over with Spearhead Realty. They are amazing. We love them. And let's see, I got started in 2019. Bought 4 houses my first year. Had a lot of fun that first year. And then now I have about 20 buy and holds. My fiance is also my business partner, so we work together on those. And we flip houses as well. I think we flipped maybe 15, 20 homes. And then we got started doing renting out by the room, which was really nice. It was during COVID. So for all the travel nurses that came in, we rented out by the room and did it on Airbnb, Furnish Finder, and all that good stuff. I do not still do that. No.
Retired.
It's a short run.
Yes.
Rooms. Worked well for a minute.
Marty Hoffman, you saw the video earlier, so you know a lot about me already. I'm in a Guthrie zip. You guys been to sell in Guthrie. I'm a buyer, and been doing real estate. I would argue since 2003 when I bought my first house. Bought a first duplex in 2012, and started getting serious about real estate like 2017, 2018. I've probably flipped 120 doors. And we have 65-ish rentals. And then right now I've got 6 rehabs going and 3 on the market. Do you want to buy anything?
Yeah, my name's Blake. I have an average last name, according to Craig.
Montana, that's it.
Yeah, so I went full-time real estate about a year ago. I bought about 30 houses this year. And I've got about 30 rental unit doors. I have some small apartment complexes that make that seem larger than it is, but probably like 10 properties. And yeah, mostly flipping is what I'm doing. Occasional keep a property if I really screwed it up and I can't sell it. But yeah, that doesn't fix it, just delays the pain. Yeah, but mostly flipping, hoping to do about 40 or 50 flips next year.
Heck yeah. Big goals, I love it. So let's kick this off. I'm really curious because for real estate investors, real estate agents, or I guess really anyone in this industry, you hit a point in your career where you feel like, shit, I'm actually doing it. Like I actually made it. What is a point in your career, in your life, where you had that feeling? And just tell us about that. What was that like for you?
So we had recently done a flip in Del City, and it was a pretty easy cosmetic flip. Turned it and burned it, 30 days in and out, and we listed the property, got some feedback on it later. That was not great. Basically quoted lipstick on a pig, don't like the finishes, the trim is bad, stuff like that. So wasn't too concerned about it. It went under contract a week or 2 later. And I remember the realtor calling me up and she said, "Oh, my buyer is so excited to own a house." And I said, "Oh, that's lovely, thank you." And she said, "I don't think you understand what I mean." She said, "This buyer, their family has never owned a house before. This guy is going to be the first in his family to ever own a house." And she said, "This is where they are going to have holidays. This is where they're going to spend birthdays. This is where they're going to spend their time in this house that you are giving them." And that was the day when I realized I wasn't just flipping houses to make a profit, making them look beautiful. That was the day when I realized that I was actually part of the community and making it better.
That's awesome. That is a big. That's a big one. I don't know if all of that.
So the question is at what point did I think of myself as an investor?
At what point did you feel like I actually made it as a real estate investor, like, this is what I'm doing, and what was that?
Yeah, I think for me, there's definitely been different steps along the way. I remember when we got that, I talked about it in a $5,000 duplex done, and I had it rented. That was 2015, and I would say I felt like it at that point. Like, my mindset was so small though, but I really felt like, man, I've got a duplex, I'm free and clear, we're good. But I knew so little, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Another big one would be, we bought a package in Crescent, 2022 maybe. And I remember that was the first time not the first time, but first time in a little bit, I was nervous at closing. It was a bigger purchase, $465,000. I'd never made any sort of purchase like that before. The bank was financing all of it. So it was almost $500,000 of debt. And I remember like realizing like, okay, we got this. So that would be another big one.
Yeah, there was a sheet of questions ahead of time when I saw this one, and I was thinking about it, and I was kind of like, I feel like every time I've kind of got there, I've been humbled pretty significantly. I'm like, okay, I can't do it. And then it's like, oh no, I have not. I've like pride comes before the fall a little bit. So, yeah, for me, I feel like there's probably like a constant like imposter syndrome where you're kind of feeling like, I don't know, like, am I really doing this? Am I really doing it correctly? And you know, I've had a lot of ups and downs this year with flipping, kind of a weird year to flip. I've been told that flip before this year. But yeah, so for me, I still feel like I'm kind of in that like trying to find my way phase, to be honest.
And it's funny, I've noticed just in my own experience, I suffer from that imposter syndrome quite often. But I find it interesting because sometimes people that you wouldn't expect would come and like ask you for advice, and then you're like, you're asking me? Like, wow. And so that's always something that's hit me. But so I want to ask you another one, just about today's market. I'm curious how you would define a smart deal in today's market. What does that look like for you?
I'll go first since I have the microphone. I would define, personally, for me, I would define a smart deal with a high floor. And what I mean by that is if I look at a deal and like the lowest possible ARV that I could sell the house for with like a safe rehab budget, I make, I don't know, $10,000 or $15,000. But the highest possible ARV, I only make $25,000. I will take that deal 10 times over versus a deal where the highest possible ARV I could make $60,000, but the lowest I could lose 10. Like it's a volatile market or there's not great comps or something. I think, again, I don't have a ton of experience prior to this year, but my understanding is that might have been awesome in COVID where like things were flying off the shelf, but I've had a hard time moving things up against the ceiling. I find that I'm a lot lower to the floor than on most purchases. So for me, like, I don't know if you said a safe or a great deal, a smart deal is a high floor. So like, for example, $170,000 price point. It's hard for a house, a fully remodeled house in Oklahoma City that's not in a bad neighborhood to sell for less than that. But a really fancy house in a great area where you're trying to be the top comp, even if I could make 80 on that, if I'm going to lose 10, if it doesn't go bad, I'd probably pass on it and take the one that's a guaranteed 15 for me.
Yeah.
I would echo that, but I would say a little different. And for me, a smart deal is something that gives me two exits. Because I have bought bigger houses and then I can't sell them. And now I'm stuck because they won't cash flow either. Because as flippers, I mean, as a buy and hold guy, I can always default to renting it out. But if you buy a $400,000 house in the country, you're not going to rent it out. You're not going to cash flow it. So I want to know, a smart deal for me has two exits. I can rent it out or I can sell it for a profit. But it's always about cash flow or cash in the bank. And therefore my criteria then becomes more of that 1,000 to 1,500 square foot house, which is probably what yours is. Because I know I can rent those easy, and I know my spread is there. It's a base hit. Yeah, there might be something sexy about a bigger house, but if I can make 20K, 30K on this base hit, I can just do that all day long. We're going to do that all day long.
Yeah, we absolutely have that in common. I am a low risk, low reward kind of gal. Much rather prefer making 10 or 20K over 60, 80 all day long. I will still buy 70% after repair value, minus the renovation costs. And then what I started doing this year and last year, the deal sweetens for me for a little bit. If the deal pencils out where I can still cover the buyer's closing costs when I sell that property. To me, that's a huge one because oftentimes if you're looking at a house that's, say, $200,000 and below, they are probably going to ask you for those to be covered. And it's not necessarily the difference of, well, let's just split it halfway. Typically, those buyers don't have that money to put down in the first place, so that's either going to make or break your deal.
Absolutely, I agree.
I really echo that, and that's something new construction developers do this all the time. It's called a concession, and they do it because it keeps their comps high in their area, and so it's good for them. But I really believe, and Craig's my realtor. Craig knows this about me. We do this all the time, but a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try to price a house to sell, and then and there's a house where we're supposed to close today, but it got postponed. And I'll give you the numbers. I listed at 189. She came in at 185 with $11,000 concession. Now I knew the house is worth 210 maybe, so I knew it appraised. So I said, hey, I want 197. You give me 197, and I'll give you 11K. And what happens here is you create a win-win-win. Realtors love it because they're on commission, so they get paid more. The buyer loves it because they can show up to closing with zeroed out of their pocket. And I love it if I've got other rentals in the area because I just pushed all my comps that my other rentals are compared to up $10,000. So it creates this win-win-win when we do the concession. And so I heartily agree, build your concession in when you build your rehab sheet. Just expect it.
Well, and it makes sense for your buyer too, right? Because even if you're countering back at a price that's over the list price, the difference in terms of monthly payment is negligible for them. I mean, they're talking
on that
about,
deal, it was $20.
Yeah, you're talking about a couple Starbucks drinks a month versus getting $11,000 credit to your closing costs. It's huge. So this might be a tough one, but what's one belief that you had about real estate investing early on or before you got into it that you've completely changed your mind about since actually, being in real estate investment?
I'll start. Because I changed 180 degrees. I started, guys, DIY, all cash out of pocket. I was raised very Dave Ramsey in my mindset. And it wasn't until 2017 I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Who's read that book? Okay, that book totally flipped my mindset in regards to debt. And I started to realize the importance of debt, and I started to realize the importance of OPM. What's OPM? Other people's money. And I realized if I were to go get other people's money, OPM, I could then also use OPT. What's OPT? Other people's time. And I'm not kidding, guys. I'm really good at flips because I know everything. I know everything about them because I did it. I could do 3 houses a year. That was like max. But I could take these old nasty houses and I could fix them myself. And so a huge thing for me was OPT and OPM and just the leverage of that.
Yeah, you built a, 3,400 square foot house in the middle of winter by yourself? Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mine is not riveting. I was just going to say that it is not as passive as people think it is. With that being said, it does have a lot to do with your systems, so it's something that you want to take into account. If you are new, I would definitely explore you to learn how to do everything first before you hire other people, even if you have the money to do so, because once you know how to do it, you can then manage other people who are going to do it for you. and in general, just try to have some systems built up. Once you have a couple rentals under your belt, you can start developing more systems here and there, but that's going to be the easiest thing for you, for having systems.
Yeah, similar to what she said, or in the same vein. I think I had this idea that like if you buy 10 rental properties and you'll have passive income for the rest of your life and you won't have to work. I think that's like a 2002 myth that is no longer true. I don't know, but like I grew up reading.
It was only true at seminars.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe in like 2010, right after the housing bubble burst or something. But I think I was like, yeah, I'm just going to buy a few rentals. I'm going to replace my whole income. And I remember one day my wife was like, I thought this was supposed to make our life better. It's made our life worse. And I was like, oh yeah, she's kind of right. And so like I think this idea that like just buy a few rentals, passive income, you don't have to work the rest of your life. Like I just think a great rental now is cash flowing after expenses, and if you really account for everything, like $100 or $200 a month. And so it's really a get rich slow scheme, not let me get 10 rentals and then I can go live in the Bahamas.
I think a lot of people tend to, especially folks that get into real estate in general, sometimes have a little bit of like the shiny object syndrome. And I think people just think it is a get rich quick kind of thing. And it's literally the exact opposite. It's like get rich long. And Marty was actually running some numbers with me, and we were on the phone one day, and we were talking about future appreciation and what homes are going to be worth 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And it's amazing when you sit down and actually do the math and the research and start projecting those numbers. And then you start looking at your portfolio differently. You start looking, what's it going to be worth in 2040? And you see those numbers, and then you're like, wow, that's meaningful. And it's all, hopefully your portfolio is paid off by then, and it's all equity. Blake, you touched a little bit on the market earlier, and I want to circle back there and ask, how do you approach investing during uncertain market cycles? Do you tend to pull back or slow? Well, you might not be the best person. You've been doing it a year, but do you tend to pull back, or do you think like, you know what, let me take a beat, maybe I'll pass on this one, or do you find ways to make it work? What's that look like?
Yeah, I'm not the best person to ask on this, so I'm going to go first so they can correct anything that I say that's not true. I am a just jump in both feet first no matter what and anything. Yeah, so that's really fun sometimes, and it's great. Like I will take action, I will go for it, and I will be the first one to lose 30 grand. Like, so like I've done that. I said it's been up and down year, and I think in part it's the market, and in part it's just like, oh, this will, we'll figure it out on the back end. This deal makes sense, and then you don't figure it out on the back end. And so I have become a lot more conservative, and when I run my ARV, so I work with a lot with wholesalers. I've had the majority of my deals from wholesalers, and so I never agree with them on ARV, unfortunately, because I'm not necessarily looking at. Yeah, exactly. But now I'm looking at kind of like I would say worst case scenario. But like if it's only going to happen 20% of the time, it's not happening for me. Is how I assume. I'm going to take what's going to happen 90% of the time, and which is it's going to sell. Right now the way I look at it is it's going to be on the market for 2 months. I'm going to do one price adjustment, then I'm going to have to cover $10,000 in closing costs. And so, yeah, ARV is 170, but I'm going to price adjustment to 165, and then I'm going to get under contract at 165, but I'm really going to take home 155. And so now there's a $15,000 variance between what ARV is and what actual sale price is. And so I think for me, it's just like getting much more conservative with my numbers and looking at things as like running my numbers at worst case and then hoping for best case.
Definitely.
What was that question?
How do you adjust your business for uncertain market cycles?
I would almost argue if you have that smart thesis, and when you go to buy a house, it doesn't matter. Because in a down market, rents are up. Everyone's moving to rentals when things are bad. And so now you want to have rentals. And so it's really easy. And we did this. 2023, I did it at the end of 2024. I had these houses sitting on the market. I don't want to carry them through the winter. We listen for rent on Zillow and we rent them out. And maybe cash flow is negligible, but it doesn't matter. We're gonna, well, you have a listing in Washington right now. Washington was a house that in 2022, interest rates started climbing. We had that pre-sold for, and the lady backed out because her interest rate went to a 4.5. I'm not kidding. And it sat all summer because interest rates, if you guys are, 2022 was rough because interest rates had been low and they started going up and everyone thought all hell broke loose. I mean, it was bad. I mean, that's what they thought because interest rates went up. It was 4.5.
Yeah. And then it got to 5 and it was the end of the world.
But that house, particular house, we owed 165 and we rented it out for $1,750 a month. And we maybe made a little bit of money. Had a really good renter for 3 years. She just moved out. And I'm going to throw it up on the MLS. So I would argue, I'm going to buy all the time, but I'm going to buy with the 2 exits in mind, where I can exit for rent or I can exit for cash in the bank. And if I can do that, down market's a good market.
Yeah, 100%. I just try to stay attuned to what's going on. I listen to bigger pockets, like on the market and stuff like that, just to kind of get a little bit more information of what's going on. I think right now is kind of a questionable time. Everyone's wondering what's going to happen this coming year. So for right now, I know a lot of investors are selling off some properties. They want to have more money in the bank. We are also doing the same thing. We're planning on selling a property that has quite a bit of equity just so we can have money in the bank, either to invest in more properties or just in case something happens, we have that. That is my best advice for people, especially in questionable markets. Just have a little bit sitting in reserves. And right now we're still flipping, but we're not flipping as much. We just put a couple houses under contract that we'll probably want to hold just because of the season that we're going into. So, yeah.
Awesome. You kind of touched on my next question, actually, so maybe you'll be a good first person for this. The question is, what local or national trends do you look at on a regular basis? And I would even extend that to say, like, what like news sources and things like that do you go to for information? And what is the information that you're looking for in order to better run your business on the day-to-day?
Sure. So being a realtor, I have the luxury of seeing all the statistics on the MLS, so that's really nice. Really honing into your niche market, like looking at that micro market. So sometimes you don't really care about Oklahoma City. You want to know exactly what you're doing in the market that you're in. Sometimes that can be neighborhood specific, sometimes it's zip code specific, but you want to know all of that. So for instance, I went to Tulsa last weekend and started looking in the Tulsa market. And so what I found was Tulsa market, as far as my research, they have a cheaper median home price, but the rents are higher. And so I looked into that a little bit more. And their rent growth, I think, is like 3% or something like that. And so, but then it kind of goes up and down. It's like an aggressive stock. Whereas like the Oklahoma City market, it's like the S&P 500. It's slow and stable. It goes up, but it goes up slowly. And so, to me, Oklahoma City is still maybe a better spot to invest in long-term rentals, but maybe Tulsa is better for flipping. They also have lower days on market. So, I'm always kind of comparing what I'm seeing, and doing that micro market analysis is so important.
I agree 100%. And I'm in the Guthrie market, so, I mean, we come to this meetup, and you guys can tell me about your deals, but they're really unrelated to me and your rents because of your point. On a national level, we watch interest rates. And I would also argue the importance of your local market. News articles, news bases are in these major big cities, and a lot of times those articles are related to big metropolitans. So if someone's in Austin, Texas, and the market's going up or it's going down, and they write an article about it. Like, it's very unrelated. And I bring this up because it's easy to read a Google thing about the market and then think, oh no. But just to your point, Victoria, that the importance of staying tuned to your zip is really crucial. And I would even argue within your zip, there's different pockets. So.
Yeah, you could go even lower than that. You know, we look at individual subdivisions and everything.
I'm mostly checking like Thunderbox score from the night before. It's my key metrics. No, I don't have a ton to add other than what they said, except for on a per deal basis, I'm definitely looking at inventory in that neighborhood or that type of buyer would be buying, average days on market. Like, what am I going to list at? And if there's 7 houses on market, am I just smack in the middle of those 7 houses, or I'm going to be the cheapest house? Or like, I'm looking at active inventory and how fast that inventory is moving in that neighborhood. If I'm looking at a deal, especially in a neighborhood that I'm not familiar with.
So really just exploring the nuts and bolts of where you're doing business and understanding how are these houses moving, how long is it taking, what do the concessions look like. Very good. Let's see. So this is a little bit different. It sounds like everybody here is mostly into single family. But my question is, to you, what does a balanced real estate portfolio look like? And do you see any pros or cons in investing in a single family versus multifamily or commercial or anything else?
I think it's hard to deal multifamily.
I'll go first because he'll have something better to say. I just have single family, so I cannot add to this much. I just think that keeping your portfolio diversified a little bit, as far as like bedrooms and bathrooms, and then the cost, we have rentals anywhere from like $50,000 to ARV of like $200,000, but we don't sway very much from that. So, tell us your wisdom now.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think any of us have flipped multifamily, so I don't know that we can.
Well, I was actually teeing that up for Blake because he's got some multifamily numbers. But as far as like your portfolio as a whole.
Yeah, I honestly haven't put that much thought into it. I just took some deals that came across my plate that were pretty smoking deals, to be honest with you. I think for me, and you mentioned this, Marty, there's definitely, I feel like the better the entrepreneur, the more shiny object syndrome you have. I don't know if that's true, but it's a thesis I have. And so for me, I'm trying to be very disciplined. I would love to do some commercial stuff or more multifamily or try co-living or like, all that stuff sounds really exciting to me. But I'm actually trying not to diversify for the sake of focus. And because I feel like single family in some regard is somewhat recession proof. I'm not like selling microchips or something like that that's really volatile. So to answer the question, I think there's probably validity in diversifying. I'm intentionally not trying to do that.
I will add a little bit in diversifying, because I do, there's niches to riches, so maybe you should just focus on one, but we have, kind of out of necessity last year, we did some RTOs and rent-to-owns. And we specifically found a niche for those with manufactured houses, because you could buy this manufactured house on an acre or two for $60,000, $70,000. They honestly don't take that much to fix. You're all in for about 10 maybe. And you could RTO those for about 50 to $180, and you could create really good cash flow with no responsibility. So that is something we did to diversify, because we have this rental portfolio that's not cash flowing great, but suddenly you're getting $400 a door on a manufactured house, and you put $5,000, maybe $10,000 in your pocket at closing. Like, it works. So sometimes, we diversified a little bit last year just out of necessity of wanting to get things sold, but not wanting to put a renter in a manufactured house. Yeah, it's an additional exit.
Very good. So Marty, that actually kind of leads into my next question, which is, in your opinion, what's the most underrated strategy right now in real estate?
This is something I learned this year. I don't know if it's the most underrated, but there's two things I changed this year, and there's three things I changed this year. One is a realtor who does marketing well is everything right now. Staging, we started staging. In the middle of the listing, I said to Craig, we need to stage this house, and then we sold it. White tile. And then the other thing I would say, and this is to Lucas, get good photos. Like, I have been the DIY is a great thing, but it has been my handicap. So you hire somebody like Lucas, who comes in and not only does great video, great pictures, does a 3D tour, but he also will create a video for you for your marketing. Dude, everyone's on social media right now. And I'm not talking about the realtor, let me show you this house video. I'm talking about cool videos with cool music. I would say that is what's underrated right now, is staging your house. The other thing I'll say about staging a house is I would say staging is probably the most underrated thing. And
I kind of want to talk about that because I'm curious to get these guys' thoughts on staging, whether or not you guys do it, and if so, why.
Yeah, can I just talk about why I love it? Yeah. And then I'll hand it off. Guys, it costs like $2,000. One of the huge points I see about staging is, number one, it takes the echo out of a house. Number two, it can hide things or just make it so you don't look at them. Number three, on inspection day, instead of these potential first-time buyers who are concerned about everything, wandering around the house and following the inspector, and honestly being annoying to him, asking all these questions, instead of that happening, that realtor is sitting with them on that brand new furniture, and they are connecting, and that realtor is making them feeling good about that house. And you do not have them nitpicking the house. You have an inspector who gives them a report at the end and says, these were the 5 things we found. And so I think staging is super underrated, and I think that last point is probably one of the most important ones, to have a realtor who will sit with them during inspections and keep them on the couch and not walk around and nitpick everything.
Now I will get on my soapbox about staging houses. I love staging houses. Staged houses tend to sell at a higher price. They tend to sell faster. Staged houses actually, there's like psychology for buyers. So when buyers walk into a staged home, they actually perceive it as having been made with better material. They perceive it as more expensive, and they perceive that it is better cared for. Also, buyers get confused by empty rooms sometimes. So say you have a 12 by 12 bedroom, buyers start walking around it and they think, oh, this is kind of small, is this even going to fit a bed? Well, the second you stage it, you plop a bed in there, not only are they saying that it doesn't look small anymore, they're actually looking at it and saying, oh, this is kind of roomy. This could fit another nightstand beside the bed. So I think that is really important. When stagers come in, they're not staging your house with this like huge sectional that you're going to watch the football game with. They are staging it with these tiny pieces of furniture. They do that for a reason. They're doing that to make your house look bigger. When they put a tall plant in the corner of the room, they're not doing it for funsies. They are doing it to draw your eye up and make you think that the ceilings are taller. So there are tons of tips and tricks that house stagers will use to make your house look better. And because there is so much inventory on the market right now, I think like, I don't know, an extra 30% or something crazy like that, there is lots of competition. So staging is huge.
I have a question. Do you stage yourself or do you hire for that?
So we hire for that just because we do not want to deal with holding on to a bunch of furniture and like keeping it in a storage unit. That's just my personal opinion. When you're running 3, 4, 5, 6 flips at a time, you're just not going to have enough furniture for that. So yeah, we go through staging companies. Some people actually have staged items on their own, but I just like the staging companies because they're so genius. They know what to do in weird corners. If there's like an odd room, or if there's like a small little divot, or like a missing built-in and like just an empty space, they know what they're doing. They'll fix it up.
I agree, we hired out.
You guys staged every house at every price point?
No.
Where do you not stage?
I had a house in Mobile Home Park I didn't stage. It didn't sell either. I rented it out again.
I stage when we don't have the budget. Or I don't stage when we don't have the budget.
I believe so firmly in this. I honestly think if I was a realtor, I'm not a realtor, and so I give up, I figure 8%, and every deal I give up to realtor fees and closing costs. But I honestly think there's deals on the MLS that are not staged that you could go in and buy, you could offer low, you could buy, you could stage and put it back on the MLS and make money. I'm not kidding. I think there is so much value in staging. And I honestly think it's the most underrated thing.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think you spoke to the buyer psychology part of it, which is huge. I mean, a buyer walking into the same house. I mean, we had it, you brought up Whitetail, and that was such an interesting listing because we had, I don't even remember, maybe a dozen showings before it got staged and didn't get a single offer. And all people would say is like, oh, they did a good job on, the rehab, but, we don't like the paint color on the wall, or it was just, they would pick apart stupid things.
The painted color on the wall changes because they throw in curtains in there and they throw in some furniture and suddenly it doesn't look whatever color.
Well, and to your point, the first showing after it was staged is the one that contracted it. So, Victoria, you talked a little bit earlier about over your career as an investor, becoming an investor, starting to establish various systems in your business. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, so I'm not a big systems girl, I'll be honest. Justin, my business partner, he is much better than I am. But I will say we have a couple real basic systems. So we use Rent Ready for our tenants. That is super easy. There might be better software out there nowadays, but it's user friendly for the landlord and the tenant. They pay us through that. They submit maintenance requests. We recently started doing QuickBooks. Before that, we did work with the bookkeeper, but we were constantly meeting with the bookkeeper over like mismanaged or like miscategorized funds. And so we felt like we weren't actually doing anything productive every time we were having a meeting. We were just saying, oh no, this needs to go into this category. This is wrong. We didn't make money. We lost money on that one. So we ended up starting with QuickBooks, and that has been huge because we can see our KPIs better. We can actually look at different properties and figure out which ones are the ones that suck and which ones are holding those properties. So being able to figure out the nuances between all of those has been huge. And then this one's kind of lame, but I mean, I still love a good checklist, especially whenever I walk into a house. I just look at the sheetrock and super minute details, and I'm like, yep, I want it. Next house. And I do not look at the mechanicals, which are arguably the most expensive part. So checklists are huge for me. Those are the basic systems that we have.
Marty, do you have any systems?
What's the question? Oh, systems?
Yeah, are there any systems that you have begun to employ in your real estate journey?
Well, I mean, there's different things we do definitely with rentals. You have to. Regarding our rehab process, we have systems. We create scopes of work. There's ways we manage people with pictures and follow up.
So you're not just walking into these houses and saying, okay, contractor, do flooring and paint and put a countertop here.
No, and something I was talking about in networking, a hack that I've used lately with scope of work is ChatGPT, and you just dictate, and you just walk in, walk around, and you just talk to ChatGPT. I do it room by room, and then I ask it to compile a full scope of work. And then if you're working with Spanish-speaking people, you can say, translate this to Spanish. You can throw in a Word document, you can hand it to them, and I just did it. I could share it with you guys if you want it. I don't think I had 5 minutes into it, and that was printing it in English and in Spanish. It was 717 East Perkins. But it just takes all that out. ChatGPT actually adds a lot of things that you would have I forgot to put in the scope of work. So that's a hack. It doesn't cost hardly. It's $20 a month for ChatGPT. Maybe you get it for free and just use a few tokens, but that's a hack that's super beneficial.
Blake, do you have anything you want to add as far as systems go?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would recommend systems if you're going to do anything more than once. I'm really good at building systems. I'm really bad at following up and using my systems.
That's me.
Yeah, I'm allowed to make a good system and then just abandon it immediately. So, my quick recommendation would be to build a very simple, very fast system. You don't buy software out of the gate. Use a Google Sheet, use a piece of paper, do it for 30 days, and then you'll know if you need software and what you need that software to do. So like, if you're gonna use CRM or you're gonna get a project management software, don't go try to find a software and figure out how it's gonna help you manage your project. Manage your projects on a Google Sheet, on a piece of paper, on a notepad, and then reverse engineer the software to do what makes sense to you. But yeah, use a ton of systems, and it's made a big difference. And if anyone's flipping and wants some specifics, like what software I use for project management, what do I use for CRM, I'm happy to share that. I guess my other piece of advice would be you get the outcomes you measure. So if you're trying to buy 2 deals a month and you have no idea how many offers you made, you're not going to buy 2 deals a month. But if you're trying to buy 2 deals a month and you know exactly every single week how many deals you're analyzing, how many offers you're making, you will end up magically buying 2 deals a month. And so you get the outcomes that you measure.
That's a great piece of advice. Guys, I have 2 more questions, and then I'm going to open it up to the attendees for a couple questions. This one is, tell us about a deal that punched you in the teeth, what went wrong, and what changed after.
A little public shaming, it's always good. Punched me in the teeth. So this is a real life story. I told Marty when he brought this up, I said we should call this how to not flip houses, because I think I'd be better certified to help people know how to not flip a house than how to flip a house. Last month I closed 3 houses and I made a combined negative $25,000. So one of those stories. This month I'll make $60,000. So it's been a roller coaster. But one of those I lost about $18,000 on. And if you listen to anything that Marty or we shared about how to be safe and conservative, I didn't listen to that advice. So I bought a house, never purchased a house in Tuttle before, bought a house in Tuttle, ARV of 425, never sold anything over 350 probably. On 2 acres, never sold a house on land, with a shop, never bought a house with a shop, didn't even check if it was on well and septic, which it was, and it needed a roof and I missed it. So that one, this is one that I, like I said, kind of jump in both feet first. So jumped in, I bought it in the beginning of January, and I sold it last month. So the holding costs were nice on a $400,000 property. I think I spent about $22,000 in holding costs over the life of that property. So that was my profit, yeah. That and a I don't know, $16,000 roof because it was a big house. And the HVAC went out because I had to hold it for so long. So that one punched me in the teeth, I think was your question. Yeah.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
One I think of was similar. We all know what to buy. We all have our own buying criteria, but I bought this house. It was in the country, outskirts of Guthrie. Really, really weird house. Really funky way it's set up. But I thought this would be a great house because it's somewhere I'd maybe want to live. And again, if we just stick to our logic and what we want, we're fine. But when we make these emotional purchases, again, it was a higher purchase. 2 years ago. Same thing. I couldn't sell it. I took it through the winter. Couldn't sell it. Couldn't sell it. I had it for 13 months. I think I paid $2.25 for it, and when it was all said and done, we lost $2,500. If I told you the spread, you would be surprised we didn't make more, but your holding cost eats you up. And like when we went to sell, it had inspections, and I should say this, we sold it without a realtor. Had we had a realtor involved, we would have lost our pants. But they did inspections, and the bottom seal plate, this house was all tile, but the bottom seal plate was out. And the bottom seal plate, guys, is what sits on top of your foundation, and it's what all your trusses tied to. And so we had to go in there 2 days before closing, jack the house up and replace that seal plate without cracking the tile. We did it.
DIY?
Yeah, you do it yourself?
No, I didn't do it. But all to say, it was what made it a bad deal. It was an emotional purchase, and it was not illogical. It was not my normal buy box, and it was this will sell because it's nice. It's in the country.
Man, yeah. Not buying the buy box. That is a great one. We had the same issue. We bought a house on the northeast side. It was the biggest house on the block, which we all know not to do, but we were very excited about the prospect of it, so we went ahead and did it anyways. We were working with a new contractor who was he came highly recommended, and I saw all his pictures and his videos, and they looked wonderful, and I checked his references, and they were stellar, and man, when he started working on the property, he was awesome. I will tell you guys, for anyone that's starting out or starting with a new contractor, you want to have multiple touch points with that contractor every single day. If you are not able to go out to that property, make sure that they are sending you pictures, videos of what they're doing. It is always easier to be strict on the front end and pull back later than the opposite. So let them know your expectations, ask tons of questions. Maybe you might learn something, maybe they might learn something. So we did that, everything was going good, and everything went to crap when we went on vacation. We came back from vacation and we were about 3/4 of the way through. And that was on us. We could have had someone go over and check the property, but we did not. Whenever we got back, all the finishes were pretty much done, but they were terrible finishes. I'll just give you an example. The texture job was spray painted or sprayed on everything. Doors, trim, windows, you name it. And that was one of the many, many things. And so right off the bat, we were like, we gotta let this guy go. And he knew it was a problem too. He told us he was so sorry, but he still expected to get paid. We didn't want to have any kind of, issues later on. So we came to a price we both agreed on. And then later on, we started finding out more and more issues after that. So not only are you paying your contractor who messed up, but then you have to pay someone else to fix the job. The funnest thing was that when they did the reference for the plumbing, they did not glue down any of the pipes. And then they put sheetrock on top of it. They sealed up the floors, and then the second that water turned on, yeah, good stuff. So we had to get all that fixed. My advice to you guys is to keep on communicating no matter what, and always check on every time there's work that is being done. Make sure that you go check before you pay them. For people who are starting out, we mentioned in the group back there, you can actually hire an inspector to go check the work that has been done. So if you spend $5-10K on renovations and you really don't know what you're looking for, go hire an inspector and have him check off exactly what that contractor said that they did, and then wait for that green light before you pay your contractor.
That's a good piece of advice.
Thank you.
All right, I have one more question, and then I want to get some questions from our audience this evening. There's a lot. I feel like we're really on a horizon where we're starting to get a glimpse of what technology is going to be like 5-10 years from now. AI is doing incredible things. What do you guys, how do you feel about the sort of what should I call this, tech revolution that we're coming into. How do you feel about that with regard to what you're doing? And how do you see it changing your business in the next few years?
Oh, I think it's so exciting. We use ChatGPT as if it is Google. We use it 24/7. There's things that ChatGPT does great, and there's things that it doesn't do so great. The other day, I was at Floor and Decor, and I had a picture of our cabinets that we renovated, and then I had different pieces of backsplash that I was picking up as I was in Floor Decor, and I had ChatGPT put that onto the cabinets. It wasn't perfect, but it actually looked pretty good, and it helped just kind of see the thought, into an actual picture, so that was cool. The other day, I just wanted to see what would happen, and so I put in ChatGPT, look at Zillow, and tell me if there's any 2% deals. And it actually found me 3 deals. I still have not called the people on it, so if you're looking for a deal, let me know. It might still be on the MLS. Yeah. So yeah, just type in ChatGPT. I had it comp a couple properties the other day. Terrible. It is terrible at comps. Do not let it comp anything for you. So anyways, to answer your question, ChatGPT, we use that a lot. Other than that, I know that there's huge stuff coming, but as far as right now, my little brain can only comprehend ChatGPT.
I think it is absolutely amazing. I think it's revolutionary. Having grown up without a cell phone, I'm excited to be in this era where we get to see all this change. I do think that home ownership will get harder. I think Wall Street will buy up more houses because they'll be working off of data, and they'll be using AI will get better, and they will have better systems for it. And so I think that my honest prediction is that this room's going to get smaller unless we learn how to use it as well and lean into it, because I think Wall Street's going to own so much more real estate as a result of leaning into the tech and utilizing it. You don't have to look very far to find how to use tech, whether it's wholesaling and finding deals that way and sending. I think Deal Machine has a really good AI program right now. ChatGPT for decorating or writing scripts. I use ChatGPT specifically on this latest sheriff's deal we're looking at. I got a letter today from the attorney that want to change things. I don't really want to get into it, but I don't understand that legal stuff, and I throw it at ChatGPT and I say, make this make sense, and it makes sense. So it really does, in a sense, make it so anyone can do it. It dumbs it down. But I think that we need to be utilizing it and figuring out how to utilize it, because I think that Wall Street, and when I say Wall Street, I mean big investors, will utilize it to its fullest power.
Yeah, I think it's really good for operational efficiencies to do things better, faster, and smarter. I think that there's the price of very small entrepreneurial software is pretty cheap because of a lot of technology. So I think 10 years ago, something like Deal Machine would have seemed crazy just for $99 a month or something. So I think using software like that for operational efficiencies is good. And then I agree with what Marty said, that for me, I kind of think about it what ChatGPT can do is crazy. So it's not far-fetched to think that eventually it's going to be able to look on the MLS, find deals that meet a criteria, run accurate comps, run a rehab estimate, and get a purchase price. And so for me, I'm kind of thinking, if that's going to be able to be done at the click of a button, that's going to be national. That's not good. You don't have to live here. You already don't have to live here to buy real estate, but the large investor and the California buyers that buy everything, that's just going to grow because it's going to become more and more easy. You can already see it with wholesaling. It's pretty hard to get direct to seller by all the methods that someone in Dubai can do and build a whole team and out of the country and cold call and automate the cold calling. So for me, I don't want to really compete on that level because I don't have the pockets to compete with Wall Street. So I think being leaning into the areas that technology, I wouldn't say technology can't touch, but there's a huge personal aspect to real estate, meeting with sellers and personal touches and staging, like things that you can't automate. I think leaning into those is an opportunity for differentiation.
Absolutely, I agree. Guys, do we have any questions out here we want to ask our panel this evening? What do we have?
Do any of you buy real estate in other states?
Just local. I've looked, but I've never done it.
Any other questions?
So earlier you guys were talking about how sub-$200,000 houses that you guys flip, you typically cover closing costs, where a lot of flippers don't take that into consideration. What about buyer agent fees? Are you guys paying for that, or is that negotiated deal? Who's paying for that?
I always pay it.
I always pay.
Okay. There's a lot of contention on the buyer's agent fees.
Yeah, there you go. If you had to start all over again, I mean, lost it all, what would you guys start doing that you didn't do last time?
Leverage faster. OPM, OPT. That's basically it.
So I would look at, for instance, like your median home price that is 1,500 square feet or less and 3 bedrooms is roughly $195,000. That's actually a 6% year-over-year increase every year. So that to me tells me that there is still, those properties are still highly sought after, those affordable properties. So I would stick with those because there's a big enough spread in them. Obviously, if you're looking at like a $300,000 house, then you're probably just going to lose a bunch of money on holding costs. If you're looking at a deal that's only $100,000 and your spread is $10K, next thing you know, if you don't know how to lift a roof, then you're going to lose out on that. So I think that that's a good even spread. And then also the days on market for a house that's $185,000 and below is roughly, it's like 30 or 39 days. But anyways, all that says to me is that it's around a month. So if I can get in quick and do a couple of those, even just a couple a year, that's what I would do.
I would add, I would buy a lot more. A long time ago.
I would probably find like a cash flow heavy niche strategy, like a rent to own or co-living or travel nursing. I think all of those things work like any other business model. You just have to figure out how they work and what kind of houses to buy and what kind of houses not to. And I would try to get my cash flow up as fast as possible to what it costs me to live, and then I would figure out what I want. But I feel like I've done the reverse. And so I've got to kind of get my flip income up to cover my cost of living and then use my leftover for cash flow strategies.
I would also come to more of these type of things, meet people. Any other questions?
Good morning. I want to hear you guys talk more about contractors. Do you pay hourly? Do you do by the bid? A little bit of both? Do you ever buy stuff because like you need to keep the guys busy?
Everything.
All of it.
I've paid them. I paid them by the day. I paid them by the hour. I've paid them by the job. It depends on the contractor. Victoria earlier was mentioning, she said the words, we hired a new contractor. And that to me is a cringe because you never know what you're going to get. And she talked about, she gave you guys a lot of good hints on training them early and communicate expectations. Where a lot of people go wrong is they don't do that well. Contractors, I talked about in the video, it's my biggest pain point. They can make it or break it. You can have to bring someone else in to pay for their mistakes if you get the wrong guy. My fastest fire, I fired a whole crew in 3 hours one time. Why? Because I knew they weren't ready. They wanted to paint the soffit. I knew it needed 2 days of scraping and caulk. They said, "Where's the paint?" I said, "You're fired." So I,
It's in your car. Why don't you get out of here?
I gave him $100 each for the day and said, "See ya." But
How many times did it take you to get to that point where you're just like, nope?
yeah, that was probably like house 40 or 50. But you learn that with contractors. But to answer your question, Jack, one, you have to work with them because there's this guy, he's an older guy, his name is Jeff, and he works for me. And I asked him, because he was kind of bidding stuff, and he was cheap. He was doing, like contractors would get done, and I'd bring him in at the end to get it ready for listing. And I finally asked him, I said, "What do you want a day, Jeff? Or how do you want to get paid? Day, hour, week, how?" He goes, $100 a day. I said, $100 a day? Yep. All right. Well, $100 a day, he works 8 hours, it's $12 an hour, he's got a driver's license, like it's a no-brainer. Had I paid him what I thought he was worth, it would have been a lot more than that. But I generally let them set the hours, the rate. They want to paint a house for $3,500, so be it. So it varies.
So do you hire a crew or do you sub out different aspects of the rehab?
I do everything. I have a crew that we have had, to answer your other question, I have found a house for them for the last 3 years. They are honest, they are hardworking, and they are fair. And I will always have work for that crew if I can. There's other houses that we call piecing it together, and that means we bring in a painter, we bring in a sheetrocker, we bring in a floor guy, and we piece it together. You can usually get those done quicker, but it takes a lot more management, because you can almost have guys on top of guys. Something I think is a big hack to flipping is to have a handyman, because there's gaps in every trade, and it's really helpful to have some sort of handyman that can come in and fill the gaps at the beginning, at the end, and in between. And he can honestly be your boots on the ground. But for $30 an hour, you can have someone who does that and kind of is your spy for you and saves you a lot. So
I think, to me, there's like two parts of flipping houses. I guess there's three. Finding the deal, rehabbing the deal, and selling the deal. Rehabbing the deal, I think, is the hardest part. And I think there's very few real estate investors who do that very well and efficiently. And that's been my biggest struggle. So I've done it with a crew. I've done it by piecing it together. I've done it with hourly guys. I've done it all. I think that there's not a right way to do it, actually. I think that you just have to do that way really well. And so I know some guys that are doing really well, and they have 3 guys, and they pay them all, I don't know, $120 a day, and they work 10 hours a day, and they do everything. They do roofing, they do flooring, they do plumbing, everything. And then I know guys that piece it out, and they're super efficient and do it really well. And then I know guys that have just like a crew. They just hire the crew, you pay a little bit more, but you don't have to worry about it. So I actually don't think there's a right way, but I think it's probably more important that you pick the way you want and then find the guys that fit into that way. Otherwise, because for me, I was always trying to find the best of all 3, and I just always grinding and not finding the right people. And then now I've kind of got my path, and I've circled back, and some of the guys that I fired is a strong word, stop using, I'm bringing them back in because they actually work really well into this system. And so I think picking a system, and then I think if you really do, you're doing scale, I think it's going to take 6 months to like really get it as a well-oiled machine of a lot of the time and a lot of attention and a lot of lost money and fired contractors. And but I think it's worth it if you're going to do scale.
All right, real quick before we wrap up, where can these guys connect with everyone on social media?
just Marty Hoffman, Facebook, Instagram, martyhoffman.com as well. Podcast. Yeah.
Merch store?
Facebook, Victoria Funner, Instagram, Victoria Funsies.
MySpace mostly? No, I'm just kidding. I have Facebook, Blake Billings, and then I have an Instagram. I think it's Blake at 3MPH. There's some underscores in there, so can't help you there. It's not good marketing. Find me on Facebook and we can go from there. And then I have a website, 3MPHinvestments.com.
Love it.
Hey, thank you guys so much for doing this tonight. Can we give them a round of applause, guys?